Good morning, Grinders. Welcome to a special edition of Crunch Time, I guess. Grinders Live, something like pregame, something
Crunch
or
Live.
other.
Crunch Live.
It's on the thumbnail, right? You see it on the thumbnail. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blender at Blender HD, joined by Dave Potts. Cheese is good. Are you used to waking up this early to talk about a baseball slate? You're normally on Crunch Time at 6:30 at night.
Yeah. So I'm usually up. I mean, I'm used to being up writing, but I'm not used to being done writing and already talking to someone on a show. I'm on my third cup of coffee. I was feeling pretty sleepy still until that exciting intro. So now I'm ready to go.
Well, I had to wake you up.
Yes, I appreciate it.
Right. We got slates that are, depending on what site you're playing on, who knows what slate you're playing. I think for this, we'll talk about the 8-game early DK slate, as well as the very early only FanDuel 5-game slate. So basically the difference is that the DraftKings slate has the 3 4:00 games on it. That good luck if we're going to have lineups before lock.
And the weirdest difference by far is each slate has a different Mets Nationals game. So I've already seen people in chat, where's Stroman on FanDuel? He's not. They have a different Mets game on FanDuel.
So they're using the second Mets game?
Second Mets game. Yes. It's totally weird. I wrote up this whole article with play Stroman on FanDuel, and then you can play Trevor Williams though. So, but anyway,
are both games are 7 innings though, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so you're pretty much not playing bats.
Pretty much. Yep. Maybe an Alonso or a Soto here or there, but yeah.
Okay, so we just have to be clear on what slate and what site we're talking about here. If you're playing on FanDuel, though, we have the single entry series. RotoGrinders sponsored single entry series. It's a $40,000 championship. So you take the top 4 scores that you've had in the single entry series, and then if you could get into the $40,000 online final. So it's a good payout structure for the single entry series. So if you're playing on FanDuel, make sure you're playing in that contest. So, okay. So now that we know what pitchers are on what slates or whatever, the pitching today is not the best. No cheese. It's not.
Yeah. It makes it kind of pretty straightforward. It's pretty clear where the chalk is, at least, just because there aren't that many options.
So on FanDuel, especially on FanDuel, you're just playing Woodruff, and not, if you're playing cash games or something like that, you just plug in Woodruff, and Corbin Burns went out and 15 strikeouts yesterday against this Cubs team. Are you scared? There's wind blowing out or whatever. But this Cubs lineup,
this Cubs team, just same thing as with Burns last night. I mean, you got to at least touch the ball, but to matter for the wind at all. So I mean, FanDuel, they've been doing, as usual all year, a decent job with the salary. You can't just play Woodruff in every lineup if you're making a bunch of lineups. But he's clearly SP1 by a lot.
And he's SP1 on DraftKings also, just at your second pitcher. We have some cheap bats. We have some team totals on the slate that, you'll see when we come up into batters, the Orioles have a 5.6 total, yet half of their batters are under 3K. You have a Tampa Bay with a big total. You got, even the Mariners have a 5 total, and some of their bats are cheap. On DraftKings, you could do something like Woodruff, Bassett, Woodruff, Means, even But according to the bat projections, as well as our ownership, from an SP2 standpoint, your favorite friend, Marco Gonzalez against the Rangers.
Yeah.
I'm Marco Gonzalez isn't a bad pitcher, but he's not someone that I ever really feel all that comfortable in my life.
The way I see this one, it's very similar. Last night, Tyler Anderson was in the exact same spot. They're more or less the same guy. But Anderson was a little more expensive, and there were more pitchers on the slate. And if anything, I think Gonzalez is a little better. It's just like, that's clearly the optimal pairing is Woodruff Gonzalez. But like you say, with some of these cheap bats, you can absolutely get two better pitchers, more expensive pitchers. Bassett and Stroman, maybe Means. I have plenty of like Woodruff Bassett or Woodruff Stroman combos that fit way too easily.
So you prefer Bassett or Stroman over Means?
I
mean, I think Stroman is the one that's going to go the least owned because it's the first game coming up, and he has the lowest strikeout rate, but he has a 7-inning game, which increases his like complete game equity, I guess. And this Nationals lineup, outside of like maybe Bell and Soto, is not very good. I mean, I'm playing Stroman only because I played 22% of him yesterday, and I have to get my money back because the game got rained out, and he was like 6% owned in the same range. So I'm going back to the well with Stroman. But with this first game, I mean, we have lock at 12-10. Like I'm building 6 lineups today. Like I just plugged in Stroman into 3 out of 6 of those lineups. And I'm going to build my lineups after the show because like I'm not playing bats in the 7-inning game. So I'll have time. So to you, Means is the odd man out, not Bassett.
Correct. I mean, I could argue going the other way. And I'm also going from the perspective that the early weather report says green, yellow in Cleveland, even though when you look at our lineups page, it looks dicier, like it's raining more. But I'm just assuming that game's fine. And I do prefer Bassett over Means.
Okay, even though in the Oakland-Cleveland game, Roth says hot, humid, winds out to right at 10 to 15 miles an hour.
Yeah, because it's also good hitting weather in Baltimore for Means. Like neither one of them have good, days for pitching.
Right. It says nearly 100 degrees, humid, winds blowing out, rain should hold off in Baltimore.
Yeah. So you got kind of a tough ballpark weather spot for both of them. And to me, Bassett's just enough better of a pitcher that I lean his way.
Right. It seems like all the weather is good hitting weather. Boston,
yeah,
hot, humid, winds out at 10 miles an hour. The Mets, dry, hot, winds blowing out at 10 miles an hour. I mean, at some point you have to take pitchers. So you can't be that concerned. And it's all factored into the projections as it is.
And that's part of the reason Marco Gonzalez is popping so much. He doesn't have one of those 100-degree days.
Yeah, but are there any other pitchers? I mean, outside of the ones that we just mentioned, like I start going down this list and it's like,
well,
LeBlanc's, Ranger Suarez, JT Brubaker. I mean, Kyle Hendricks against the Brewers. I mean, are we playing any? I mean, are we playing any of these guys?
There's 2 other guys on my list, and I'm talking 100 lineup list. Eli Morgan against Oakland is on my list. Like the recent numbers look like he's starting to figure things out. But huge risk. I mean, like the power risk.
Yeah, according to the bat,
you
should be checking it twice.
Right. Well, the bat is going off the history of Eli Morgan, not the recent Eli Morgan. So depends who you think Eli Morgan is. And then if you just need all the salary in the world, which again, I don't think you do, you could theoretically play 4K Sean Nolan against the Mets.
How many pitches do you think he goes?
He's a starter. He's a minor league starter. So there's no limit per se. It's just whether or not he's good. And he's not a prospect. This is like an old guy. It's like a minor league journeyman, the very definition of a minor league journeyman. But he's been throwing, 5-6 innings in the minors. So like if you want I hope I get 8 points for 4K, that's him.
Yeah, but he could get more. I mean, if he actually pitches 6 innings, 4 strikeouts, 1 earned run type of game. I mean, like a quality start. I mean, the main concern I always have with these 4K pitchers is not necessarily, hey, I have no problem rostering crappy pitchers. I just don't want to roster crappy pitchers that are like, well, you got 60 pitches. If you can't get it there, like you're done. Like, because then it just removes the entire like ceiling possibility. Like when I see pitch counts, that's the main reason I don't play guys like Casey Mize and I don't know, they're David Price, where it's like they could pitch if they were allowed to, they could pitch 90 to 100, but they just never get allowed to. So you're saying that Sean Nolan, because he's a minor league journeyman, he may not be a good pitcher, but like if he happens to do well, they need him to eat up innings.
Yeah, since it's a doubleheader, like if things go his way, I don't see any reason he wouldn't go 5 innings. It's like he certainly could get shelled and out of the game before that, but yeah, I don't think he's on some guaranteed pitch count since he's been starting in the minors.
Right, but like Matt Manning is a starter, and he's about a bad starter as it is, and he's 5,300. So like, yeah, he could go 6 innings. He could also give up 8 runs. So like, if you put that in the same perspective as like Sean Nolan, how do you think Sean Nolan is any worse than Matt Manning? And I'd go no. And
no, that's exactly why I'm playing Nolan, because you're looking at Manning or Fulte for under 6K, and I'll take the guy against the Mets.
So you have no interest in Fulte?
I wouldn't quite say no. Like I didn't X him out. I didn't try to get any. If I have one, it's kind of by accident, but he's going to continue to have like 1 every 3 starts. He's going to have a quality start just on accident. And he's fine-ish, but I definitely prefer Mariners bats.
Do you want to play on DraftKings a 15% owned $8,200 JT Brubaker or a 13% owned $8,700 Tanner Houck?
So that's where I like Eli Morgan, but I would also play Tanner Houck ahead of Brubaker.
Yeah, the bat has Houck as the worst point per dollar play on this.
Yeah, and that's the same thing as Morgan. Like it's not, me in projections. Projections don't factor in if a guy is different than he used to be. Like all it has to go on is 40 innings of relief, and Tanner Houck right now is a 34% strikeout rate. That's not a bad pitcher
if he keeps it up,
right? And there's no reason to think he won't. But with him, back to your pitch count thing, he is a pitch count concerned guy. So I really don't like the price. And again, that takes me back to I'm more on Eli Morgan than him, because we're probably still looking at a 4, maybe 5 inning pitcher.
Right. If you understand how projections are done, especially the bat, which typically takes a much larger sample size, like it's going to weight recent performance more. Every projection model does, but like we have like Cal Quantrill recently, he's changed something to get strikeouts, but like we have a large sample size of him being like a 14% strikeout pitcher. So like a projection model isn't going to either catch that as quickly, or what's going to end up happening is that the recent sample is actually the outlier, and really you should be going by the long-term form, but you don't know, but you're not going to know that before the start. Like you're not going to know that. So your attitude, see, you take the approach, Dave, of you want to catch it earlier before everyone else does, right, and have that risk of playing Eli Morgan. And if he's that guy, then maybe that at 1% owned at 8,500, you get heavily rewarded for that. And like my approach is more of, let me take the long-term form and go where play the Stroman at 7% or something like that, because it's like, no, he's long-term, he's a much better pitcher than what he has been pitching. So I'm hoping he comes back to his base.
Yeah. And to be clear, I do like Stroman better than Morgan.
Right. But I don't like any of these pitchers. Like these $8,000 range. Like I in my 6 lineups, I don't even know if I'm going to have an 8,000. I can't see playing Brubaker, Houck, Morgan. Can't see playing Hendricks at 9,600.
And like again, that's why I'm just totally fine with Marco Gonzalez, Chuck, or punt all the way to Nolan and just goof around.
Just goof around.
Goofing around is one way to do it.
Okay. So going over to hitters. Is there any reason that in cash games that you're not playing like Austin Hayes and Anthony Santander?
No, I don't understand what, I mean, at some point just raise them a little bit, put them at 3-5 or something. No, just play them. And like you already said, Manning is almost certainly the worst pitcher on the slate. It's a good hitting day in Baltimore. Yeah, just play them.
I mean, look at all these 2K hitters that are, I mean, it looks like the chalk is Baltimore, Tampa Bay, maybe a little of Seattle. I mean, we have like lefties against faulty is always an issue. We have Kellenic at 2,300. Seager's fairly cheap at third base. He's 4,400, and third base is a fairly weak position today. So you want to go through some batters for both sides. You don't have to go position by position, just batters that are like the core foundations of cash type constructions.
Yeah. Let me pull this up here. And of course, we're going to be missing a lot of these lineups, the later lineups, and you do get weird lineups in day games. So you can't count too much on anything. Like, to me, like the cheap catcher play that I like the most is probably Cal Raleigh for Seattle. I mean, we're not going to know if he's in the lineup till we see the lineup.
But even then, I think you could play. When is that game? When is the Oakland game?
Well, that's the problem.
Yeah,
the Oakland
you
game
play
starts
Jan
well
Go, like,
before.
you know, does he even know? Jan Go's
No,
isn't
so
even in the lineup.
Sean Murphy's in.
Sean Murphy's in. Okay.
So it gets tricky with these start times staggered. Like, you may end up, if you have a cheap guy in one of the late games, there's a chance you're going to end up having to play someone you really didn't like because the pivots are gone. So I would lean towards, if you're torn between a guy that's already in the lineup and a lineup that's not out, I would play the lineup that's already out.
Right, because I mean, you could play. I mean, Contreras is in the Cubs lineup. Wow, this Cubs lineup is brutal.
Yeah, it's not a thing. Like, I think you could play Andrew Knapp for 2,200 if you.
How about at other positions?
Yeah. What's that?
How about at other positions? We're just
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan. I know the crunch time format is typically here's position by position by position, but I have this movement. I have this movement going on that since 90% of people play GPPs, position by position isn't as used. Like, here's 5 to 10 hitters that are most likely going to be cores of your cash lineups, and then we could figure out in GPPs how to not play those guys.
Okay, so with that, obviously you mentioned if you don't want to play the Orioles outfielders, I think you should in cash. There's so many cheap outfielders that fit that same mold. Let me double check a couple of these lineups that did come out. Dylan Carlson leading off is pretty great. I do like Jared Kelenic at 2,300 a little later. Like, basically you're playing at least 2 cheap outfielders in a cash lineup or an optimal lineup. I really like, even liking Eli Morgan. Matt Olson is kind of he seems more of a tournament play. I would play him in cash as well. Christian Yelich, if you got money, I think is the outfielder that I want to spend on. A lot of these infield positions are kind of wonky. To me, Xander Bogaerts is probably another spend up. Shortstop does not excite me in the way the outfield does. So the more I look through the infield positions, the more I would say you probably play 3 cheap outfielders and spend up in the infield. Get like Kyle Seager, I tagged at third base because I think he's too cheap. But like, play Brandon Lau and Bogaerts and Olson to spend up in the infield, save in the outfield. That's kind of the key to where I'm seeing cash game bills.
Right, because it seems like the value is all in the outfield, and if you're paying down at the middle infield positions, you're paying for nothing. I mean, you're playing Hoy Park at second base, but you're doing that to what? So you could pay up for like Bryce Harper in an outfield spot for like when we already have 3K outfielders that project like only 2 points less than Bryce Harper.
Right. So that's definitely the way to go. The outfield values are just all over the place, and they're good too. They're not just cheap. They're good and they're cheap. Whereas in the infield, it's more, well, they're cheap.
If you were to pay up at the outfield, like you would think Yelich would be the top. In the middle range, maybe in Austin Meadows.
Yes. So I do like, I don't know exactly what to do with Tampa, but I do like Lau and Meadows. I would say Cedric Mullins, again, a Baltimore bat, but I like Mullins. I like Mark Canha. I like Mitch Haniger. That's kind of that mid 4K range that I like. Like I wouldn't probably play Meadows and Lau in a cash game lineup together. I don't really want multiple guys against Houck in a cash game. And I'd probably lean Lau there. But the Orioles just look so good. I would say probably Cedric Mullins in that mid-range.
Yeah, but for GPPs, the Orioles are going to be the chalkiest team.
Yeah, so in GPPs, I would switch more to like, JD Martinez. I do like Mitch Haniger a lot. You can play guys like Franmil Reyes, the Dodgers in general, all these teams. Spending up in the outfield is different just because of what we were talking about for cash games. So that's where Bryce Harper becomes, I think, pretty fantastic. I mean, I don't think he'll be 1% owned where we have him, but he'll be lower than he should be.
Right. The main concern about paying up in the outfield is that you're gonna have to pay down at least one of your pitcher spots. And hello, Sean Nolan.
Yeah. So that's where you're playing. You're basically not playing Woodruff. Like you're playing Woodruff with Nolan, or you're playing Gonzalez and someone cheap-ish. So yes, I agree. You probably only get one outfield spend up, even when you're trying to be funny. But I do think it's worth doing in multi-entry because it's so off the board.
Okay. Talking about off the board, I think from an ownership perspective on the slate, on DraftKings at least, number one is going to be the Orioles. Number two will be the Tampa Boston game in general. If you're going to pay up a little, I mean, I guess, some of the Boston bats, maybe some of the Rays bats. I think the Mariners will be in that kind of bunch. I think the odd man out teams are the Dodgers, like you said. And now in the Dodgers lineup, I mean, I don't know if you play Pujols at 2,500 because of his, he's not going to play the whole game. But Pollock's batting cleanup now. The Bellinger's batting seventh. They moved this lineup around. Obviously, Justin Turner's not in it anymore. You have Austin Barnes in instead of Will Smith. Like, you can make this, they have a 5.5 implied team total. And I think they're going to be significantly lower owned than the teams that we mentioned. And I think the Brewers against Hendricks, other than Yelich, I mean, yeah, we played him yesterday. I mean, obviously, Arrieta's hard. I don't even know why they trot him out. Kyle Hendricks isn't the worst. But the Brewers have over a 5 implied run total in a game that's 88 degrees and the wind's blowing out of Wrigley at 11 miles an hour. Do you think between those two, I know you liked the Dodgers yesterday, and the Dodgers tend to go perennially, under-owned on slates where they're not like the top team. Are you looking at the Brewers also? I
am. So I do have, I agree. Like I'm looking at both those teams in the same way that you are. It's definitely Dodgers first for me. Even though like both the opposing pitchers are pretty good, but Suarez is still probably 3 or 4 innings. And then Hendricks, he got that win to deal with. So to me, it's definitely Dodgers ahead of Brewers. I'm my sort of hierarchy of expensive-ish teams is Dodgers, Red Sox, Brewers. And because of all the values in the other spots, I'm really not that worried about any of them being super high owned. And so I'm going to just have I'm going to have more Dodger stacks than Orioles stacks because you can.
In large field GPPs, would you not play Hayes and Santander, the cheap Orioles, as one-offs?
I'm actually okay with them as one-offs.
Only because they're so cheap.
Yeah, they're just so cheap.
But to me, like the Yelich one-off is the thing that I would have to like.
Yes, I would. That's
if
where
everyone's
play
if that's going to be your
Harper
pay-up outfielder, I'd rather play someone else as a one-off. Yelich in a Brewer stack. But it's
agree.
The concept is the same. It's just that when they're really cheap, like the event. Okay, fine. It's possible that the Orioles only put up 4 runs. The stack, doesn't get there, but Hayes has 2 home runs, and you need him at or 1 home run, and as long as you have a home run at 2,700, like you're great. Like it's just the expensive guys. It's like, well, if Yelich has a whole bunch of points, like the Brewer stack went off, then you'd rather not have that guy as the one.
Yeah, that's kind of where I land. Like you don't want that guy. So yes, Harper over Yelich as your one-off. But with Santander and Hayes, I mean, it's so cheap. And if you're spending up, like if you're doing like a Dodgers stack or something expensive, like you already don't have a super chalky lineup. So I still have those guys as one-offs.
Right. In single entry in 3-man in the smaller field stuff, I'd actually lean more towards not having them, only because they'll be even more like in large field. They'll be high owned, but in the small field stuff, they'll be. I mean, it's quite possible that these 2 Oriole bats could be 40+% owned, and on an 8-game slate on DraftKings, it's like they're just 40%. That's just way too much. That I just no, I just won't play. But in large field, they may be 24% owned, which is still the highest, but not so ridiculous that like in order to beat 400 people in a single entry contest, like I don't mind fading 2 40% owned bats and hope the Orioles fail and then like win a low scoring slate. So to me, it's a matter of field size as well as, price.
Yes, that's something that an important concept just in general. The smaller the field, the higher the chalk. So
that's why in single entry 3-max, I think the cheap team that I'd play instead of the Orioles, the Cardinals against Brubaker.
Right.
Matt Carpenter, 2,300 batting cleanup. What do we do?
I mean, the lock button is there for a reason. No, but really, like he's fine. He's still as bad as he is at his age. He's still going to hit some home runs. He's in my pool, absolutely, and not just because I like him.
Right. So we don't have O'Neill in the lineup, but you still have Bader at 2,700, Carlson at 3,100. I mean, these are prices very similar to Santander and Hayes. I'm assuming they're going to be much lower owned. The Cardinals have a lower implied team total, 4.7, and they're playing in Pittsburgh, which people tend to not play bats because it's such a pitcher's park. You normally get burned by the Cardinals. I could put that right from experience. I have no problem doing that. And the other stack that I like, you should probably know the other stack that I like because it concerns your favorite word and it starts with an L. I
don't know any.
You don't know any L words at all?
I can't think of any.
Llama starts with 2 L's.
You're some kind of loosey-goosey stack.
Loosey-goosey.
Is it Oakland?
No.
Okay, good.
No, what am I going to do? No, Oakland will be low owned, which starts with an L. But Eli Morgan isn't going to be owned, so I don't get that other L word.
So are you going Texas?
Why not? Cheap. It's like the Orioles. It's just that you're playing the team total that's too lower, and they're playing in Seattle against Marco Gonzalez. But if you tell me Marco Gonzalez is 40% owned, and people are already going to play a cheap stack in their lineup in like a Bassett, Stroman, Woodruff lineup, like why don't I just knock out the 40+% of people that play Gonzalez and hope that the Rangers put up 8 runs against him?
Yeah, I completely understand the concept, and I have so I do have 150 lineups. I absolutely have 2 Ranger stacks. Now, if I was making 20 lineups,
2 of them, wow.
Which means if I was making 20 lineups, no, I would not have a Ranger stack.
I'm making 6 lineups. I'm probably having 1 or 2 of them.
I like the way you do it.
You like the way that either I win a lot or I lose all of my money.
Right, but that's a very good way to play. And, it's, I get it. I understand.
But look at this
I wish you
lineup. I
well.
mean, the only thing I could ask DraftKings, like, at least they're consistent, right? They don't price up Hayes and Santander for weeks upon weeks, and they will never price Isaiah Kiner Falefa down. Right? Like, why is he still 4K?
It's weird that like Adolis Garcia is so much cheaper than Kiner Falefa. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree. They're cheap, and you can do those, like you can do a Rangers stack with some really great one-offs, whether you want them high owned or not. Like you go like Olsen and Harper and
Nate Lowe's in my
Bogarts.
first base spot. I can't play Olsen.
Nate Lowe.
Can't
Yep.
stack the Rangers without Nate Lowe, right?
I mean, I would, yeah, we'll say you cannot. I will not allow it.
They have 2 first basemen, or do I play Curtis Terry instead?
Honestly, I would play Curtis Terry. I am a Curtis Terry truther.
No, but you could stack, like, you could play like the expensive Dodgers stack. Like, when I say stack, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be 5, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Like, it could be 3. It could, I mean, like, if you need a cheap bet, like, for instance, if you're, have a lineup that requires a Hayes, Santana, one of the cheap Orioles bats, like, and it doesn't include Marco Gonzalez in it, like, then play Adolis Garcia instead, because he's going to be way lower owned and against the 40%+ of lineups that have Marco Gonzalez. So it doesn't, the L word, the leverage word, which isn't necessarily utilized, the best around the industry. I mean, this is direct. This is the actual purpose of the word lever, like where
Right.
you're taking advantage of playing guys that are negatively correlated to a high owned play on purpose, so you get additional relative value into your lineups. Like, that's why I said, like, Oakland, people would say, oh, that's leverage on the field. Like, no, it's just a low owned team.
Right.
In comparison, I mean, it's the same as playing the Dodgers. It's just not playing a chalk team. So I may have out of my 6 lineups, I may not have a 5-man Ranger stack. I may only have 3, maybe a 4-4 type of lineup, or maybe just, hey, I like this lineup, and instead of Hayes, I'm just going to put Adolis Garcia here because I'm playing Stroman plus Woodruff in this lineup.
Yeah. So I appreciate and notice that you actually use the L word correctly and not just flippantly. And, the world appreciates you doing that. So someone has to be on the correct side of word usage. So thank you on behalf of all of us.
I take my L's very well. L's for leverage.
I see what you did there. Sorry, we got lineups kind of firing in. I'm trying to pay attention to what's going on. The Brewers lineup is kind of different than what we expected.
Well, I mean, Avi Garcia, I think, broke his hand yesterday.
Yeah, and Narvaez is out, which changes things. Lorenzo Cain is out. So you've got like a pretty clear, like that top 4 for Milwaukee is pretty clear. Like that's who everyone's playing. And the rest of that Milwaukee team is, I don't think anyone will have them. It's also, even though the lineups are technically out before lock, I do think we see, similar to the late games, like anyone who was not projected to be in the lineup and then suddenly is going to be lower owned, regardless of whether they're good or not.
Right.
So like I'm kind of going out of my way right now to stick in some Jackie Bradley and Pena and Urias, the guys who are in for Milwaukee that we didn't expect.
Yeah, with catcher so weak as it is, I mean, isn't Manny Pena at 3,200?
Yeah, he's like
a Wrigley win game. What's wrong?
Completely reasonable play, even if you're not stacking Brewers. Yeah.
To continue talking about the L word, if John Means is going to get ownership, I mean, we haven't mentioned the Tigers, but the problem with the Tigers is that I think that some of their key bats, I think, are a little like, do you want to continue to pay 5,100 for Eric Haas?
Yeah, that's such a weird price. Although, with everybody else out, like Smith is out and Real Muto's out and Contreras, and he's kind of it, which is just going to make him, he's expensive, and he's probably not even going to be sneaky now because he's kind of the only high-end catcher. I wouldn't actually mind stacking Detroit without him. If you want to
the problem is that at the bottom of the lineup, you don't know. You never know who to play. You get the Castros. Willie Castro was the one with power, and Harold Castro is the one with speed. You always have to. You always have to put that kind of together, right?
Yeah, and Harold hopefully won't even play. Hopefully.
And then you have
Harold.
two first base. It's very hard to stack them.
Yeah.
Because they have two first base. I mean, like
it's a bummer.
Like
yeah, since they switched
Moreland.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't think Means really ends up high enough owned to where you can use the loosey goosey word in that situation. It's a matter of just, do you like Detroit because you like them?
Is there anyone else that? I mean, I think we pretty much went through everyone. The Phillies against Mitch White. I mean, we didn't mention that, I guess.
Yeah, they're. I mean, that's more or less a bullpen game for the Dodgers, and I don't love picking on the Dodgers bullpen. It's fine, but without Real Muto and Hoskins, like, I don't know, that lineup's just doesn't excite me.
Vomit stack the Pirates against Wayne LeBlanc. I'd rather play the Rangers.
Yeah, actually, yes.
Gonzalez, actually.
Yes, that one's about the same. And the Pirates don't even, like, Brian Reynolds isn't playing today, which, I mean, I actually don't mind you saying that, the Rangers ahead of the Pirates, but it's a similar idea. They're fine-ish.
How bad is Gregory Polanco that he has to bat behind Wilmer Difo and Anthony Alford?
Maybe Wilmer Defoe's amazing. Did you ever think about that?
Gregory Polanco has the highest home run rate for the fact that he strikes out like every other at bat.
Yeah, it's I feel bad for the guy. Like, I still stubbornly think he's good.
Well, projection stubbornly thinks he's good also because he hits just enough home runs that his median is decent, yet his range of outcomes is just. I mean, he must have a 45% strikeout rate.
It would seem like it. It's not pretty. I'm sure it's not 45, but that would be amazing. I don't even want to look. I want to assume it's 45. I don't even want to look.
Okay. If you're in the YouTube chat, hit that thumbs up button. Give me the thumbs. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live. There'll be another show, I think, later today for whatever the hell the late slate is. I don't even know.
Yeah, it's 3 games.
You're doing double duty today.
No, I'm not on that late show.
Okay, but I don't even know what slate that is, right? I don't know. It's gonna be for something, but
yeah.
But
it's a 4-gamer on
Q&A.
FanDuel.
Yeah. So we'll take Q&A in the YouTube chat. We got FanDuel stuff. I mean, we could go past because the first lock is for DraftKings and the second lock is for FanDuel. So that's why we can mention FanDuel after that.
Yeah.
DK single entry better one-offs 2v2. Olsen, Carpenter, or Alonso Urias?
I don't know where you stand on this. I actually really love playing the one-off in the 7-inning game if it's someone like Alonso.
You don't mind doing that?
Not at all.
Yeah, if they beat me, they beat me. That's
basically I'm playing Alonso and Soto, and that's what I'm doing.
But you're paying the same price for one less at bat. Oh no, Alonso's 3,900. What happened there?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so now it mitigates it a little, but Soto it's 5,500. Right, just thinking. Let's see in the YouTube chat going through. So is there anything specifically for FanDuel GPP? Because I mean, obviously, we have the other Nationals Mets games at 7 innings. We don't have the Orioles because we've been talking about all these cheap Orioles. Well, it's not on the FanDuel slate.
Yeah, and
you don't have Gonzalez. You're not
right.
playing the Rangers on the FanDuel slate, and you're not playing the Rays or the Red Sox on the FanDuel slate. So everyone's probably watching this going, so what the hell do I do on FanDuel? Because on FanDuel, I mean, I'm assuming it's more like you're looking at the Cardinals and the Dodgers and the Brewers and the A's.
It's very different because you're not going to get the ownership discount on the Dodgers and Brewers that you got there. I think Oakland probably ends up with a good bit of ownership on FanDuel. But like the more condensed it gets, the more kind of everything gets a little bit of ownership. I guess I'm going to say the Dodgers will still be the under-owned of these really good teams. And they're the Dodgers, so that's still where I'm going. But like the Brewers, Yelich is so cheap on FanDuel. Just him alone being that cheap will make the Brewers stacks go up. So I'm a little wary of that one. And like, I think Olsen and Canna will probably get a lot of ownership, at least for Oakland. So I think I'm just going to say the Dodgers, and then kind of the Cardinals would be my FanDuel stacks of choice.
Right. In the bat, Woodruff projects for almost 6 points higher than any other pitcher on the slate. But the next highest pitcher is Stroman. And well, obviously, because compared to Bassett, Stroman projects way better than Bassett. Yeah, but you can't play Stroman on fan. Okay, I'm looking.
Right. Yeah,
okay,
that's
right.
they switched
Right, because a lineup HQ with the double headers and the different slates, you know, right. Oh yeah, so basically, yeah. So once you take Stroman out of FanDuel, Woodruff projects almost 11 points higher than the next pitcher.
Yeah, it's the Cubs are so bad. I mean, you kind of have to play them. Like, Chris Bassett at 9,900, that $1,100 doesn't really help you that much. I still have, I'm going to have a little bit of Chris Bassett, but you can make Woodruff work, and you should.
Right. It looks like the chalk is basically Yelich plus Dodgers plus A's. I mean, it's a 5-game slate, so we just named the best teams. Well, there you go. Max Muncie at second. I mean, what's at second today on FanDuel?
Yeah, so that's why, like, Max Muncie, I don't really love him against like a huge ground ball lefty. Again, only for a couple at bats, but Escobar.
Who else do you play? I mean, who else do you play?
I think you play Escobar. And then I think you might want to play. Our ownership between Muncie and Chris Taylor is not correct, but I think Taylor ahead of Muncie, or playing both of them, is a pretty interesting way to go. If I just had
because Hoy Park is set 2,700 on FanDuel, and he's like the minimum price on DraftKings. So it's like you take a look at that 2,700 on FanDuel and you go, why the hell am I playing him?
Yeah, you're not. But yeah, it's a pretty dead position outside of the Dodgers and Escobar. Pretty much anyone else is just in a stack, I think. I don't see. I mean, you could play Tommy Edman, Josh Harrison. It's just kind of, and that's why we're showing so much ownership for Muncie, even though it's not an ideal matchup.
I mean, it seems like the cheaper bats. I mean, Brian Hayes is 3,300. I mean, are people really playing the Pirates? This ownership can't be. Anthony Alford isn't going to be 24% owned on.
No, that it's not El Correcto at this point.
Sometimes you could just look and you go like I know that's not going to happen. So, and you have no scientific method other than like, I just know human beings and they ain't clicking on that name that often.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So some of these just, it's so weird with these slates all messed up site to site, and this game's on that and that game's on this. Like, there's no good way to do ownership projections on
right.
this.
And the late lineups, and you have to update it for that. And who the hell knows?
Yeah. There's really just certain spots, will get the ownership, and then some, won't. But everything else is just a big old jumbled mess of, I would say you could play whoever you wanted.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The St. Louis Cardinals are going to be very happy.
Why is that?
Because the Cubs just put Jake Arrieta on the unconditional release waivers.
Ooh, so they can get him.
So they can pick up, because they got Happ, they got Lester.
They need
why not pick up another guy like that?
They need their right-handed.
They don't have to trade for him or anything, right? Just get Arrieta also.
That is great. Yep, they're definitely going to sign him.
Right? Did you see that quote from Wade LeBlanc when someone asked Wade LeBlanc? It's like, how does it feel to be like the youngest pitcher on the pitching staff? Like, he's like normally I'm the oldest guy on the staff.
Yeah. Normally I'm the worst, but now I'm the ace. But
No,
kudos to Adam.
Wainwright
Adam
pitched that.
Wainwright is awesome. Like, I'm so proud of him. He makes me proud to be old. So other than him, though, it's.
But he's not really. But Wainwright's not really an ace. He's just like he's a quality pitcher at the top of the staff.
He's an ace in St. Louis.
Well,
That's
for
for
St.
sure.
Louis, right? Just like Marco Gonzalez is an ace for. I mean, Logan Gilbert now is the guy that has like what 8 career starts is their ace.
Marco Gonzalez would be so much better than all the Cardinals lefties. That's
Right,
where they're living.
They should get him. Okie doke. Nothing.
waiting on
I don't
these
see
liners.
anything else in the YouTube chat. I don't believe. Let's see. We got okay. So the schedule for today is 6:45 Eastern. Okay, so because there's like a game. There's that Iowa game at 7, and then there's 3 9 or whatever games Eastern, and that's a slate. And I don't know. So
Yeah. So the DraftKings slate doesn't start till 9:30 Eastern, the evening slate.
but the FanDuel one has the Iowa game.
Yeah. So that one is going to be essentially the regular time, a little after 7 o'clock.
So they didn't mind putting in that early Iowa game into that slate, but they would put not the early Mets game. They put the Mets game that you're not going to have lineups for because the first game is still going on.
Yeah.
That's what they put in the. What do people? It almost feels like they should even get. I wouldn't mind, even though they're competitors, to just get together and say, "Can we just make the slates the same?" Just makes it easier for people.
It would be useful on my end. I'm certain of that.
Sean V says in the chat, "Imagine playing a Mega Chalk Marco Gonzalez today."
It's
That's
weird.
what I'm imagining. Rangers.
Weird.
That's why I'm imagining that.
Yeah. Although you do need 2 pitchers.
So you play Wade LeBlanc instead,
That is true.
right? If you say they're about the same type of pitcher, why not play him instead against the Pirates?
I will allow it. But really, if you can get 2 good pitchers, but even the good pitchers other than Woodruff aren't that good. But still, I would go Woodruff Bassett if you can.
Okay, so with the slates later today, we have crunch time at 6:45 Eastern. So you can hit that notification bell to know when we go live then. And if that's going to be through the FanDuel lock and then doing some DK after. So it's going to be kind of the opposite of this show, right? So because DK locked first, so we talk a lot about DK, and then FanDuel, it's going to be kind of the other way around for the later show. Geez, I'm trying to what I've been doing. I've not been having the greatest of MLB seasons. You've been having a great MLB season. I'm trying to catch up to you in other sports. That's what I'm trying to do.
You're good at fighting. I don't want to fight you.
Verbally fighting, maybe.
I don't want to fight you. Apparently, you're good at fighting. Yeah.
You don't play the MMA?
I don't. I played 2 slates last year when there was nothing else going on, and I was like, I don't know.
You'll play League of Legends.
Those are video games. Video games are for cool people. I'm not fighting. I don't want to fight anybody.
Yeah, but it's okay. To me, it's easy. To me, it's just it's one or the other. To me, it's easier than golf, right?
Oh, yeah. I made like 5 golf lineups this week because, I mean, why wouldn't I?
Have you ever had? I've never met someone that's had success at PGA other than Nono, maybe.
No,
I've tried
it's
it
one
so
of
many
those.
times.
Yeah. Every 5 or 6 weeks, I'll play 10 lineups on a slate in do the $4 20 max entry or something. And I have no idea. I have no idea what's happening or why or who's good or if the good people are good. I don't know.
Well, it all seems like random. It's like, okay, I'm not going to play a guy that's over 20% owned. And that's the week where 4 20% owned guys come in 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm like, okay. And then it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna keep on doing that. It seems like whatever the chalkiest guy that's 38% owned somehow manages to come in the third place. And it's like, does the chalk not fail in PGA? And then you say, okay, well, this guy projects way too well for me not to play him even at 22% owned, and he comes in like dead last. It's like
I don't know
really?
who Webb Simpson is, but I know I'll be mad at him by tomorrow. I don't know. That's all I know about golf this week.
But you can do the same in MMA. See, in MMA, one punch, one mistake changes the whole. Like a guy could be a 5-1 favorite, and then make just one slight mistake and be like down on the ground and be like the big underdog going into the second round or something. So it's like people do the same thing. Oh, this guy can't possibly lose. And then they lose. And then I'm sitting there, and they're like, how did you possibly play that guy? It's like, well, he was like only 5% owned and he had a 12% chance of winning. So I'll give it a shot. And
all right. I'm playing MMA.
Right. I'm teaching. Right. Understand that you're playing MMA. It's the same reason as me playing the Texas Rangers today.
Okay. That makes sense.
Right. So you know that you're going to play those lineups, knowing you're looking at them going, this most likely is going to come in last place. Then every so often, a couple of times a year, maybe it doesn't. Right. So you do the same. So what you do, is you listen to the ground and pound. Right. Okay. We have MMA content here for premium members. You could click on the link in the description to get $10 off your first month. And then anytime they say, I can't see how this guy loses, play his opponent. Right. That's essentially what you do. Right. But of course, you play the other guy in lineups where you're playing the opponent of the other. There's two people that can't possibly lose, and one of them will lose. So you just build lineups with the opposite of each like that. See, that's kind of like cheating, right?
I'm on board. I am.
You play Marco Gonzalez
fighting. Yes.
Right. You play Marco Gonzalez and you play the Rangers in two different lineups. And he's like, well, I can't be pissed off, right? Because if Gonzalez gets blown up, I'm happy. And if he has a great game, I'm happy. So it's you keep yourself happy by just picking out all the possible outcomes.
You cannot possibly lose.
You can't, right? 150 lines, you can't possibly lose.
I've never met anyone who's lost. That is fantastic.
Right. Dave Potts 2 on Twitter. Cheese is good. The cheese is mute. You got the musings, right? I can't believe how hard is it on days like this where like you have to write for like 5 different slates and it has to be out by like 10 in the morning, and then coming on a show like this. This is a busy morning.
It is. That's why I'm taking tonight off. And yeah, I need to probably take a nap this afternoon, and because then tomorrow I got to get right back to I assume probably a 15 game slate. So
right, it just keeps on going. Just keeps on going. Hit that thumbs up button on your way out the door. I'll be back tomorrow as usual for the DFS pregame show at 11 o'clock in the morning. So for Dave Potts, cheese is good. And me, Jordan Cooper, Blender Ed, Blender HD. This has been whatever you want to call it, whatever's on the thumbnail. It's crunch time, I believe, on RotoGrinders.com.